بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. To proceed, brothers, sisters, friends, respected elders, respected ulama, I greet you with the warmest Islamic greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallahu khairan for inviting me from the UK to give you some nasiha. As we know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ad-deenu nasiha." The deen, this religion of ours, this way of life called Islam, is sincere advice. So I want to give you a whole range of pieces of advice which I think are very important for everybody and for myself included. The first piece of advice, and I want you to listen very carefully to this, is about love. The word love. I know everybody knows what it means by when I say love. Yes? Does everyone know what love is? What is love? Brothers and sisters. Brothers. Someone put their hand up and tell me what love is. Does anybody know? Okay, what's love, brother? Okay, good. We have a romantic in the room. You must be single. Because when you get married, you won't have that view anymore. I'm only kidding. The brother is saying love is about fulfilling the wishes of the one you love more than yourself. Okay? So that's what love is. Good. Who has something different? Yes, brother. Okay, good. So the brother is talking about the hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You could say the hadith from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu when he said, "I love you more than I love myself." Okay, good. But that's the same as his definition. Does someone have a different definition? Yes. What is love, brother? Allah. Allah. Excellent. Because Allah is al-wudud, meaning the excessively loving. Al-wudud means the excessively loving in the Arabic language. One more different definition. Anyone else? I'm going to pick on someone soon. What about the sisters? Any sister, what's their view on love? Someone give me a definition. Today.
Love from Allah and His Prophet.
Okay, good. Religiously, that you love Allah and His Prophet. Good. Okay, the reason I'm doing this exercise with you, brothers and sisters, and it's a very important exercise, because sometimes when we think about certain things such as love, we don't even know what it really means. This is why, if you read the works of the psychologist Vivian Burr, she wrote a book called Social Constructionism. It's a big word, ignore it, but she was talking about society. As she was saying, the way we understand certain words and their meanings is affected by society. For example, she says today's love is just an internal feeling. This is why when you go to the police or you watch documentaries on television, you would see that someone who hits his wife, he says, "But I love her really." But 200 years ago, or even in some villages in places like Greece or Africa, you have the grandmother, and love would not be just an internal feeling. Rather, love would be a behavior. She would say to her grandchildren, "Come here, let me love you for a bit." Do you see the difference? And that's why it's very important for us to understand when we talk about important terms such as love, we define them in the accurate way and we understand them as Allah wants us to understand them. Now, where am I going with this? The reason I'm mentioning love, because currently, in my humble limited opinion, the Muslim community, especially concerning parenting, lacks love. We must be more loving, especially, unfortunately, when it comes to the Asian subcontinent people. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Kashmir, India, because there's a cultural construct, there's a cultural narrative that sometimes the fathers have to be very domineering and dictatorial, okay? And it's something that we have to be very, very careful about, because I studied psychology at university, and when you see the Quran and the Sunnah, you see that the parenting style of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was extremely loving. And we have many examples. And the reason I want to talk about love as the first piece of advice is because, please, for the sake of Allah, let's revive this rahmah. Let's revive this love. Let's revive this essence of our religion in our homes. Because many of our youth, and I travel up and down the country in England and across the world, I visit like 60 universities a year. And I notice amongst our youth, we lack confidence. We have an inferiority complex. We're not able to engage with other people. We can't smile. We can't empathize. We can't see people's problems as our problems. And this is because of parenting. Wallahi, is because the father and the son, or the father and the daughter, there's something wrong with their relationship. It all ends up to this reality. Because something happened when you were 7 years old, your dad was tired from work, he'd said something that upset you, and you remembered it for the whole of your life. And it shapes you. And this is so true, this is psychodynamic perspective. It shapes your perspective on the whole world now. And I would argue that we have a huge responsibility as future parents. All of you are future parents, no matter how old you are. Because we're all potential parents, yeah? We're all future parents, or we're parents now. And we need to revive this aspect of love, because love is the mechanism for change. I give you the dalil, the evidence. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran talks to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says, if you weren't kind to them, if you were not merciful to them, meaning the Sahaba, they would have run away from you. They would have run away from you, meaning kindness, rahmah, mercy, love, mahabbah. All of these things is the mechanism to deliver the message of Islam. You can never deliver the message of Islam with a stick, or with a sword, or with a punch. But rather, as per the Quran, what the Quran is saying about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's saying if you were not kind, if you were not merciful, they would not listen to you regardless of the message. So this is very important. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, if you love someone, tell them. Wallahi, there are some families in our community, the son or the daughter has never heard that word at home before. They have never heard that word at home before. And it's a disgrace. Because love is one of Allah's names, Al-Wudud. It is an essential and intrinsic part of the divine being, of the divine reality, Allah Azza wa Jal. But yet in some of our communities, this word is not existent. Not just the word, but the behavior itself. And we see many aspects in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was very loving and merciful to children. For example, when he used to carry Hassan or Hussein on his shoulders, he would say, Ya Allah, I love him, so make sure you love him. We see, for instance, that the Prophet ﷺ was carrying a small child, and this child urinated on him. He wasn't upset or angry. That's what a child does. So he just moved the child slightly and sprinkled some water. SubhanAllah, if some children were to spill some soup or coffee on us, we give them a backhand, or we shout and we get angry and we get frustrated. But Rasulullah ﷺ taught us how to do mercifully and lovingly to the children, especially when it came to nasiha. The Prophet ﷺ would never advise children in a derogatory manner. Sometimes, for example, if a child comes to us and they're fighting with their sibling, with their brother or sister, and they'll come up and say, Baba, Baba, she took my lollipop, she took my sweet. And then you're like, oh, bas, chup kar. Yeah? Oh, stop it, shut up. Yeah? But the Prophet ﷺ would never do that. He would take the problems of children seriously. Because for the child, losing that sweet is very important. If you belittle the child, you are showing the child that the child's feelings and emotions are insignificant. For example, when one child used to take the dates of a date tree that didn't belong to him, the Prophet ﷺ didn't hit him or shout at him. He explained and rationalized and said, you know, this tree doesn't belong to you, and was really warm and kind and loving. So the point is, we have to take our children's feelings seriously, and we have to have love and rahmah at home. There is another dalil from the Sunnah, from the Prophet ﷺ said, you will not enter Jannah, you will not enter paradise. No paradise for you, sorry, doors closed, until you believe. And you will not believe until you love one another. Subhanallah, this is our tradition. This is why Ibn Qayyim, he said that where you see rahmah, where you see mercy and love, you should see Islam. So I would argue, brothers and sisters, that one of the most important things you must have at home is love. And interestingly, in this same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, shall I show you something which is going to spread the love? And he said, spread the salam, the salam. Now sometimes when we give salam to our brothers and sisters and we open the door, we see our wife, or our wives, if you're lucky. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of our tradition. I don't know why it's so funny. So when we come home, we see our wives or our wife, and we see our family, we should say Assalamu alaikum, but not in a fast way, like Salam, Salam. Sometimes when we do it on the text message, SLM. Salam, Salam, Salam. It's like a new airline. I was on KLM just a few hours ago. So the point is, we give it without the essence, without the heart feeling. Do you think the Prophet ﷺ is saying love will be at home if you spread the salam in any way? Salam, salam, salam. No, it has to be done with feeling. This is why An-Nawawi, one of our scholars in Islam, when you do dhikr, when you do remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, you don't do dhikr like machine gun. Subhanallah, 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 alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, takbir, yeah? Explosions, yeah? Dhikr is not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be with your heart, with the full essence. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he recited Quran, his whole mouth was being used. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. It was full. It's not like Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Rahman Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. See, it's full. That's why An-Nawawi said concerning dhikr, you feel it in your heart. You have it in your heart and you say it with fullness. Subhanallah. And you understand what that means. Alhamdulillah. Similarly, when we give salam, it's like a dua for your brother. So you say, Assalamu alaikum. I really want peace with you. I want it. It's not just like a hello. Hello. Soon, there's going to be a hybrid with a salam and a hello. Hello. What is this? What is this, people? We need to be people of meaning, because the Quran is meaning. The Quran has an impact. Similarly, what we have to do at home, we give it with fullness and with full heart, with intentionality, with the intention behind it. So please, this first piece of advice is probably the most important piece of advice. So for homework, we need to have homework now, because we're all children at school, no matter what age we are. The homework is, go to your wife, go to your children, and tell them, I love you. I love you. And mean it. And say, I love you for the sake of Allah, and I love you as well. Because my nafs loves you. So it's double love. So share that love. Share that love. And you'll have one of the highest places in Jannah. Because we know that the Prophet ﷺ said that people in paradise, in one of the highest places in paradise, are going to be those who loved each other for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. So spread this love at home. There's no need to be harsh for no reason. There's no need to act like the boss. No need to act like the man just because we have an ego. Yeah, if you want to do that, there are many places in the world to act like a man. Not at home with your beloved wife and your beloved family. Spread that love. Wallahi, from a psychological perspective, it changes the human being. It changes the human being. Now, you may ask me now, well, I don't feel much love. And I want love at home. The only way to change is for you to be loving. It's called enrolling people in your behavior. For example, if there's no love with my parents, I have to be loving to make the environment. So we have to enroll people in the behavior. Be that change. As Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ. Indeed, Allah will not change the situation of a people unless they change أنفسهم, what's within themselves. So that's the number one advice today, is love. So what are you going to do when you go home today? You're going to spread what? I can't hear you. Good, I love you guys. Okay, that's good, love. Second piece of advice. Don't be a slave. Be a slave to Allah, but don't be a slave. I repeat, be a slave to Allah, but don't be a slave. Because many of us are not slaves of Allah, but we're slaves anyway. And listen to me very carefully. An American writer once wrote that your birth, my birth, all of our births is like being kidnapped and then sold into slavery. Because wallahi, you didn't choose that you're going to be Moroccan. Did you choose you're going to be Moroccan? Did you choose you're going to be Dutch? Did I choose that I was going to be Greek, looking like a Pakistani? Oh, kya tiko. Did I choose this? Did you choose, sisters, that you were going to be a woman? Did you choose that you were going to be a man? Maybe these days with a lot of money, but that's a different story. We had no choice in these things. Did we choose our parents? Did we choose our brother or sister? Did we choose the country in which we were born? Did we choose the social biological context? Did you choose your DNA? You had no choice in these things, so you're a slave to these things. Don't pretend you're free. You're born a slave and you die a slave. And there's another slavery. Many of us are enslaved to our instincts. We think we know who we are, but we don't. We're enslaved to our desires. This is why Al-Ghazali in his book, The Alchemy of Happiness, the 11th century theologian and thinker, he said, you think you know yourself. When you're angry, you fight. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're enraged by passion, you make love. But you're no different from any other animal. The true reality of who you are is in your inwardness. But we don't know because we're enslaved to our desires. We do this when we go home sometimes. If there's no meat at home for dinner, there'll be a riot. Isn't it? The way we act sometimes. We're so ungrateful. You know, we'll have such a nice food and we won't even say thank you to our wives. We won't even look at them in the eye. So the point is, we're enslaved to our carnal, bestial aspects, to our nafs from that perspective. This is why Allah says in the Quran, have you not seen the one who takes his nafs as his Lord, as his God? But even so, there's even another form of slavery. This is what I call social pressure. Not only the slavery of what you were born with, your social biological context, not only the slavery of your desires, but we have another slavery, which is the slavery of society. Take beauty as an example. If I ask you the question, what does it mean to be beautiful? I'm telling you, many of you would react and say, must have blue eyes, or nice wavy hair, or I must have a six-pack, okay? Or I must have, you know, nice fingernails, or nice hands, or I must be tall, or I must be fit. And women would be like, I can't have any split ends on my hair. You know the split ends, the twigs, yeah? Or I must have nice feet, or a nice figure, or I must lose weight. So what we do, we have been affected by society because they are teaching us what beauty is. And this is called a reductionist view on beauty. It reduces beauty to single parts. Oh, he's so handsome. He's got such a nice earlobe. Yeah, we reduce beauty to one thing. You know, she's so nice, she's got a great eyebrows. Yeah, that's what we do. And this is because of the social construct, that narrative teaching us on what beauty is. And this is incorrect and wrong. Malcolm X, the famous black activist and Muslim, may Allah have mercy on his soul. Malcolm X, he wrote in his autobiography something about beauty. And he said, we Muslims, we believe in Tawheed, in the oneness of Allah. We affirm oneness of Allah. And we see beauty via His oneness. So we don't reduce beauty to a piece of flesh or to the way the eyebrow looks, but holistically, we see the internal features. We see the wholeness of the human being. And this is how we see beauty. And this is why true love is not skin deep. Wallahi, true love is being in love with the holistic nature of who that person is. And trust me, in Jahiliyyah, when I wasn't a Muslim, I converted to Islam 10 years ago. I used to have girlfriends. That was in the past, before I was Muslim. And wallahi, I would never fall in love with a very pretty woman. I would always fall in love with someone who was ugly. Wallahi, but they always became pretty after because of the personality. They had warmth, they had sweetness, because I was brought up by my father to see beauty in that way. And that's how we all should be. But we're affected by society, by the L'Oreal because I'm worth it culture. Isn't it? Wallahi, when sisters or brothers look at this, oh, I want to be like David Beckham. I want to be like Kim Kardashian. Or all these really ugly people. Honestly, because by Islamic definitions, they're ugly. But we have been affected so much by the social pressure on what we think has to be pretty and beautiful and nice. And we're enslaved to this social pressure. Wallahi, it's a dangerous type of slavery because it's so subtle you don't even know it. When you woke up this morning, you were even affected by this slavery. Where shall I put my hair? This way or that way? Shall I wear my nice jacket or not? What kind of perfume should I put? Should I pluck my cheekbones or pluck my nose? Yeah, we've all been there. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with looking good. But it's about the intentions and the reason behind it. I used to work for the government in the United Kingdom. I used to work for the police. We used to do the IT systems. And there was a personal assistant. She used to wear very funny cat heel shoes. Do you know what cat heels are? Sisters, you know what cat heels are? It's like a shoe that looks like a cat when it's bending, okay? It's a very high heel. And she had 2 plasters on her heels. And it was bleeding. And I'm, very open. I'm Greek. We break plates at weddings, for God's sake, yeah? So we're very open. I was like, hey, what's the matter with you? Why are you wearing those shoes? Oh, because it makes me look good, feel good. Ask your feet that question. It testifies against you. And I said, why do you think it makes you look good? And she was thinking, she never asked herself that question. Why does it make me feel good? Oh, because people think I look pretty. Why do people think you look pretty? And why should that make you feel good? So I was asking all these questions and she was so confused. She's like, you're right. It's painful. She took her shoes off. So it's the power of questioning. But she was affected by the social pressure, by society. Wallahi, my dad is not a Muslim, but make dua, he becomes Muslim. Make dua, my parents become Muslim, inshallah. My dad would walk and buy a newspaper. He would walk 5 minutes on the high street in front of everybody with his pajamas, slippers, with his hair everywhere, and he doesn't care what people think. Now, we don't have to go to that extreme, but look at his values. He says, I don't care what people think, what people perceive to be beautiful. And Muslims should be the same. We shouldn't be affected by the social pressure, by the L'Oreal culture. We must make the culture. We must be the people of influence, not the ones that are being influenced. SubhanAllah, why do many Muslim women, they convert to Islam from the West? And you always hear, we're doing a study at the Islamic Education and Research Academy in England, and the study is on non-Muslims, how they convert. And many women, they say, when I became a Muslimah, I knew what it meant to be a woman. SubhanAllah. Because we believe this deen is a deen of fitrah, is a deen of the innate disposition of nature. This deen, this worldview, this religion is a religion of nature. It's in line with our nature. So, where am I going with this? What I'm saying is, don't be a slave to your context that you couldn't choose, your parents, your siblings, your biology. Don't be a slave to your bestial aspects of man, the carnal desires, the instincts. Don't be a slave to the social pressure, to the L'Oreal because I'm worth it culture, but rather free yourself. But how do you free yourself? This is why everyone who's not a Muslim is still a slave, even when they preach freedom. Because they're either a slave to themselves, as enslaved to the biology, or enslaved to the society. And Allah teaches us to free ourselves how? Well, let me give you a clue. The word for the soul in Arabic is ruh. Ruh. And the word ruh comes from the word in Arabic. It shares the same root as raha. Do you know what raha means in Arabic? It means serenity, liberty, freedom. So the ruh, the soul, is seeking liberty and freedom, this raha. And the only way to do this is to change your slavery. Stop being a slave to yourself. Stop being a slave to society. Stop being a slave to biology and your context, but be a slave to Allah. And by enslaving yourself to Allah, having ubudiyya, a servanthood to Allah Azza wa Jal, you free yourself from the dunya. You free yourself from all these types of slavery. So our liberation is in the enslavement to Allah. But the other type of liberation, which is a Western discourse of liberation, is a liberation via the enslavement to their own selves and to society. So my question is, choose your slavery. And I'll be a slave to Allah, because Allah knows Hamza better than Hamza knows Hamza. Makes sense, brothers and sisters? So be a slave with a capital S, not with a small s. There's slavery to all these ephemeral, empty things like the dunya, which comes from the word adana, which means low and lowly. But be the slave to Allah. And once you're a slave to Allah, you're free from everything else. This is why the ruh, the soul now can achieve a raha, that freedom and liberty that it seeks. Third piece of advice. So the first piece of advice, love at home. The second piece of advice was about slavery. The third piece of advice is going to be on choosing your friends. Choosing your friends. Brothers and sisters, one of the most important things in our religion is to be wary of who is around us, is to have a consciousness on who is around us. And we know this clearly from the Sunnah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that you will be upon what your friends are upon. If your friends, for example, are atheists, all of them, then you may be heading that way. If your friends, for example, are devil worshippers, not that exists anymore, well, maybe in some parts of Amsterdam, I'm only kidding. You know, you're going to be upon that. So be careful concerning your surroundings, because we are a product of our surroundings, as we previously discussed. And this is important even in modern psychology studies. If you see the key studies in psychology, you see, for example, the Milgram Experiment. Who's read about the Milgram Experiment? He was a Jewish psychologist in the 60s, I believe. And the Milgram Experiment was that he wanted to take people from normal parts of American society and see how easy they were influenced by influentials like scientists, or how they would be obedient to these type of people. And what he did was he got an actor, but he never knew, but the participants never knew that this person was an actor. And they had to ask this actor questions. Every time the actor got something wrong, they had to electrocute the actor. And it ranged from like 1 vote, 5 votes, to 450 votes, the lethal. Wallahi, the majority of participants, over 60% of them, all went to the 450 lethal voltage. All because they saw a scientist with a white coat and influence around them saying, don't worry, it's part of the experiment. So they killed someone because part of an experiment. We also have the study of Zimbardo, the famous emeritus professor Philip Zimbardo. He did a study on what? On the prison study. And these people, they knew they were just participants. It wasn't real. But half of the participants had to be prisoners and half of them had to be prison guards. And after 2 weeks, they all felt that they were real prison guards and they were real prisoners. To the point when they spoke to the priest, they would say, I want a lawyer. But they knew it was just a psychology experiment. So this shows the power of influence, whether it's peer influence, social influence. So wallahi, take it seriously. You may think, oh, I'm strong, I'm not influenced by my friends. That is rubbish. They even did an experiment with 3 lines on a board. A small line, a medium line, and the long line, the longer line. When they asked individual people, everyone got it right. The 3rd line is the longest line. But when they had another 5 people with them that were so-called academics, and they were saying, I don't really know. I think the middle line is the longer line. I think more than 25% got it wrong. Just because of people around you. So choose your environment. This is why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He mentions the people of the cave. What animal was in the cave? A dog. Now Ibn Kathir, who was an exegete who explained the Quran, a classical scholar, he raises the question. He says, why does Allah mention the dog? It's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. If you take the dog out of the story, who cares? Why does Allah mention the dog? Do you know why? Allah is showing us the dog happened to be with the pious people as a companion. And they were pious and they didn't do shirk. So Allah not only saved them, but Allah saved the dog as well, because the dog happened to be with them. So imagine for a human being if you happen to be with good people. Imagine you if you happen to be with good company. Allah will help you and give you barakah as well. So Allah is giving you the contrast. If Allah could save a dog, which in some jurisprudence, some fiqh, it's a dirty animal. If Allah could save a dog because the dog was with pious people, imagine what He will do with your life if you're with pious people. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. What an amazing story, huh? I bet many of you never knew this. When I saw it, when I read the story, my hairs were up like knives. So these are my 3 pieces of advice. Love each other. Enslave yourself to Allah and you'll free yourself from all types of slavery. And choose your friends. If you follow this advice, actually follow this advice, do your best. You're going to hit the floor, but when you hit the floor, you're always going to bounce back if you have ikhlas, if you're doing it for the sake of Allah. So I pray to Allah that I take this advice upon myself. I pray you take this advice upon yourselves as well and help each other, because everyone's on different levels. Don't point the finger, because you have 3 fingers pointing back. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you, guide you, love you, protect you, take care of you, and grant you Jannah Firdaus. And may we be resurrected with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions. And may all of you stay strong as a community. And may all of you love each other and respect each other. May all of you be happy in this life and have sakina, tranquility in this life and in the hereafter. And any difficulties you're facing now, don't worry, because have patience. Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. Allah is with the patient. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, even if you was to suffer all your life, the minute you're dipped in Jannah for 1 second, you'll be asked the question, did you ever suffer? And you'll be like, Wallahi, I've never suffered. This life is not permanent. It's a few years. Focus on the akhirah. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.